In the Old Testament, the temple treasury was supposed to be used for the sake of giving up tithes and offerings to God, where the tithe is the 10th% of what your income is, and then the offering is supposed to be given to the temple as an offering to God, as well as to be stored in the treasury in order to serve as reserve, to give to the poor. This is how the Old Testament temple was. Now, since the law has not been abolished but fulfilled in Christ Jesus, we are all tabernacles. We are all heavenly temples, a royal priesthood, living stones being built into a spiritual house. And our church congregations, as listed within the book of 1 Corinthians, Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, addresses the offering plate. The offering plate is supposed to be set apart and collected in order for one another to prosper. This is the secret of monetary, financial philanthropy and assistance within the church system. It isn't a charity giving to the poor in a philanthropic way, however the word is, but it's supposed to be a kind of exchange, a kind of helping each other. When somebody is without money or without a job, what the church is supposed to do is they're supposed to lift up an offering. While you give 10% of your tithes and offerings as obligation to the Lord, the tithe and offering is dedicated to the treasury, to the church, where the pastor is supposed to say something like this: hey, along with your tithes and offerings, how about we lift up an offering for our brother who is sick and cannot work? Let us lift up our 10% as our tithe and offering, and let us lift up an additional 2% or an additional 5% for our brother in need. This is how the church order is supposed to be. This is frustrating for a lot of pastors to hear, because a pastor, he loves to lift up an offering for a missionary who comes in, a guy of high reputation. He comes in and says, I'm going to give $1,000, $2,000, $20,000 to this missionary in order to help with missions in Africa. And this philanthropic attitude is supposed to bolster the reputation of the pastor instead of bolstering the heart of God, to which every week, every month, we are to lift up offerings for the poor, to store up in the treasury as reserve. And so this does not give the pastor reputation, but instead forces him to surrender his financial burden to the Lord. This is the responsibility of the pastorship. I see the richest churches in the world give to charities and to missionaries. Once in a while, every 6 months, a missionary comes, you lift up an offering. Maybe at the beginning of the year, you do a sacred season and you lift up an offering for the church. And you get, and this is supposed to be for programs and for potlucks or whatever. But the thing is, this isn't pleasing to the heart of God. For burnt offerings and sacrifices did not please me, but a broken heart pleases me. I don't care about how much money you raise for the missionary. The missionary has his ministry, and he gives what he is owed to God. What is owed to God, he gives already. You are to give to your community. You're to give to your church congregation. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it was always supposed to be. We have not forgotten, but we have omitted. We are supposed to help.